The Pomp and Circumstance Marches, Op. 39, are a series of marches for orchestra composed by Sir Edward Elgar. The title is taken from Act 3, Scene 3 of Shakespeare's Othello. But also, on the score of the first march, Elgar set as a motto for the whole set of marches a verse from Lord de Tabley's poem The March of Glory, which begins, proclaiming the shows of things the Norvège assumption that the splendid show of military pageantry pomp has no connection with the drabness and terror circumstance of actual warfare. The first four marches were all written before the events of World War I shattered that belief, and the styles in which wars were written about spurned the false romance of the battle song. The marches, the Pomp and Circumstance Marches are, March No. 1 in D, March No. 2 in A minor, March No. 3 in C minor, March No. 4 in G, March No. 5 in C, March No. 6 in G minor. The first five were all published by Boosey and Company as Elgar's Op. 39, and each of the marches is dedicated to a particular musical friend of Elgar's. Each march takes about 5 minutes to play. March No. 1 in D =. Dedication: March No. 1 was composed in 1901 and dedicated to my friend Alfred E. Rodewald and the members of the Liverpool Orchestral Society. Instrumentation: the instrumentation is 2 piccolos, 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets in A, bass clarinet in A, 2 bassoons, contrabassoon, 4 horns in F, 2 trumpets in F, 2 cornets in A, 3 trombones, tuba, 3 timpani, percussion, 2 harps, organ, and strings. History: the best known of the set, it had its premiere, along with a more reserved second march, in Liverpool on October 19, 1901, with Elgar conducting the Liverpool Orchestral Society. Both marches were played 2 days later at a London Promenade concert in the Queen's Hall, London, conducted by Henry Wood, with March No. 1 played second, and the audience rose and yelled. The one and only time in the history of the Promenade concerts that an orchestral item was accorded a double encore. The trio contains the tune known as Land of Hope and Glory. In 1902 the tune was reused, in modified form, for the Land of Hope and Glory section of his Coronation Ode for King Edward VII. The words were further modified to fit the original tune, and the result has since become a fixture at the last night of the proms, and an English sporting anthem. In the United States, the trio section Land of Hope and Glory of March No. 1 is often known simply as Pomp and Circumstance, or as the Graduation March, and is played as the processional tune at virtually all high school and some college graduation ceremonies. It was first played at such a ceremony on June 28, 1905, at Yale University, where the professor of music Samuel Sanford had invited his friend Elgar to attend commencement and receive an honorary doctorate of music. Elgar accepted, and Sanford made certain he was the star of the proceedings, engaging the New Haven Symphony Orchestra, the college choir, the Glee Club, the music faculty members, and New York musicians to perform 2 parts from Elgar's oratorio The Light of Life and, as the graduates and officials marched out, Pomp and Circumstance March No. 1. Elgar repaid the compliment by dedicating his introduction and allegro to Sanford later that year. The tune soon became de rigueur at American graduations, used primarily as a processional at the opening of the ceremony. Description: March No. 1 opens with an introduction marked allegro, con molto fuoco. The introduction leads to a new theme, strong pairs of beats alternating with short notes, and a bass which persistently clashes with the tune. The bass tuba and full brass is held back until the section is repeated by the full orchestra. A little rhythmic pattern is played by the strings, then repeated high and low in the orchestra before the section is concluded by a chromatic upward scale from the woodwind. The whole of this lively march section is repeated. The bridging section between this and the well-known trio has rhythmic chords from the brass punctuating high-held notes from the wind and strings, before a fanfare from trumpets and trombones leads into the theme with which the march started. There are a few single notes that quieten, ending with a single quiet tap from side drum and cymbal accompanied by all the bassoons. The famous, lyrical Land of Hope and Glory trio follows, played softly and repeated by the full orchestra including 2 harps. What follows is a repetition of what has been heard before, including a fuller statement of the trio in which the orchestra is joined by organ as well as the two harps. The march ends, not with a big tune, but with a short section containing a brief reminder of the brisk opening march. March number 2 in A minor equals. Dedication: March number 2 was composed in 1901 and dedicated to my friend Granville Baintock. Instrumentation: The instrumentation is piccolo, 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets in A, bass clarinet in A, 2 bassoons, contrabassoon, 4 horns in F, 2 trumpets in F, 2 cornets in A, 3 trombones, tuba, timpani, percussion, and strings. History: It was first performed, as was March number 1, by the Liverpool Orchestral Society conducted by Alfred Rodewald, in Liverpool on October 19, 1901. Both marches were played 2 days later at a London Promenade concert. Description: The second is the shortest and most simply constructed of the marches. The composer Charles Villiers Stanford is said to have preferred this march to the first, and thought this the finest of all the marches. After a loud call to attention from the brass, a simple staccato theme, tense and repetitive, is played quietly by the strings, being gradually joined by other instruments before building up to an abrupt climax. This section is repeated. The second theme, confidently played by horns and clarinets, with contrasting triple and duple rhythms, is one which was sketched by Elgar a few years before. This is developed and ends with flourishes from the strings and brass joined by the glockenspiel. The opening staccato theme returns, concluded by a quiet swelling bass passage, which leads into the trio section, which consists of a delightfully simple tune in thirds played by the woodwind, answered conclusively by the strings and brass. This trio section is repeated, and the march concluded with a brilliant little coda, which includes a drum roll on the snare drum, a shattering chord in A minor, briefly played by horns, and followed by a final cadence. March number 3 in C minor equals. Dedication: March number 3 was completed in November 1904 and published in 1905. It was dedicated to my friend Ivor Atkins. It was first performed on March 8, 1905, in the Queen's Hall, London, conducted by the composer. Instrumentation: The instrumentation is piccolo, 2 flutes, 2 oboes, cor anglais, 2 clarinets in bar and registered trademark, bass clarinet in bar and registered trademark, 3 bassoons, contrabassoon, 4 horns in F, 2 trumpets in bar and registered trademark, 2 cornets in bar and registered trademark, 3 trombones, tuba, timpani, percussion, and strings. Description: March number 3 differs from the others in its opening mood, which is deliberately solemn. It begins with a dark subdued quick march led by low clarinets, 3 bassoons and the horns, before a vigorous theme erupts from the full orchestra. The dark theme reappears, is then restarted boldly, then ended abruptly. The central section commences with a perky tune played by a solo clarinet with simple string accompaniment, which is followed by another of Elgar's noble tunes played by the strings of the orchestra. All the themes reappear and there is the final section which ends abruptly. March number 4 in G equals. March number 4 is as upbeat and ceremonial as number 1, containing another big tune in the central trio section. Dedication: March number 4 was completed on June 7, 1907, and dedicated to my friend Dr. G. Robertson Sinclair, Hereford. It was first performed on August 24, 1907, in the Queen's Hall, London, conducted by the composer. Instrumentation: The instrumentation is piccolo, 2 flutes, 2 oboes, cor anglais, 2 clarinets in bar and registered trademark, bass clarinet in bar and registered trademark, 2 bassoons, contrabassoon, 4 horns in F, 3 trumpets in A, 3 trombones, tuba, timpani, percussion, 2 harps, and strings. History: The trio was used by Elgar in a song called The King's Way, which he wrote, to his wife's words, in celebration of the opening of an important new London street called Kingsway in 1909. In World War II, number 4 also acquired words, A patriotic poem by A. P. Herbert with the refrain beginning "All men must be free" was used as Song of Liberty. In the wedding of Charles, Prince of Wales, and Lady Diana Spencer, Pomp and Circumstance No. 4 served as the recessional. As Diana's veil was lifted and the couple bowed and curtsied to Queen Elizabeth II, the opening notes sounded and continued as they walked down the aisle of St. Paul's Cathedral out to the portico and the waiting crowds. Description: The march has an opening section consisting mainly of two-bar rhythmic phrases which are repeated in various forms, and a lyrical trio constructed like the famous Land of Hope and Glory trio of March No. 1. The first 8 bars of the march is played by the full orchestra with the melody played by the violas and upperward wind. Both harps play from the beginning, while the cellos, double basses and timpani contribute a simple bass figure. The bass clarinet, contrabassoon, trombones and tuba are held in reserve for the repeat, when the first violins join the violas with a tune. There are subdued fanfares from the brass interrupted by little flourishes from the strings before the opening march is repeated. There is pause, then a little section which starts forcefully but quietens, leading into the trio. The trio follows the pattern of March No. 1, with the melody played by clarinet, horn and violins. The violins start the trio tune on the lowest note they can play, an open G string, which gives a recognizable twang to this one note, and they are directed to play the passage Sul G on the same string, for the sake of the tone color, and the accompaniment is from the harps, low strings and bassoons. The grand tune is repeated, as we expect, by the full orchestra. The opening march section returns. The grand tune is repeated again in the home key of G major. And the last word is had by a restatement of the opening rhythmic patterns. The march prepares the audience for its end as surely as a train pulling into a station, with the violins, violas, and cellos ending on their resonant open G. March No. 5 in C equals. Dedication: March No. 5 was composed in 1930, much later than the others, and dedicated to my friend Dr. Percy C. Hull, Hereford. Its first public performance was on September 20, 1930 in a Queen's Hall concert conducted by Sir Henry Wood, though it had been recorded 2 days earlier in the Kingsway Hall, London, conducted by Elgar himself in spite of his poor health. Instrumentation: The instrumentation is, piccolo, 2 flutes, 2 oboes, cor anglais, 2 clarinets in bar and registered trademark, bass clarinet in bar and registered trademark, 2 bassoons, contrabassoon, 4 horns in F, 3 trumpets in bar and registered trademark, 3 trombones, tuba, timpani, percussion, and strings. Description: Without introduction, its opening episode is extended with enormous confidence and proceeds directly into the trio section. The trio starts quietly in a similar way to the introduction of his first symphony, just a moving bass line and a tune, also in the same key. The tune is restated strongly, as we expect, then developed. The restatement of the opening employs the same instruments of the orchestra, but is this time started as soft as possible for just 4 bars before a quick crescendo restores its spirit to as it was in the beginning. There is more development before a big return of the trio theme, in the home key of C, and a triumphant ending which might bring to mind the conclusion of Grieg's In the Hall of the Mountain King. March No. 6 in G minor equals. History: Elgar left sketches for a 6th Pomp and Circumstance March, to be the final work in the set. In 2005, these were sent by the lawyer for the Elgar Will Trust in a bundle to the English composer Anthony Payne. Also included was an article titled Circumstantial Evidence by the Elgar authority Christopher Kent from the August 1997 musical Times explaining the sketches. One idea in the sketches was marked by the composer Jolly Good. Kent believed that Elgar's compositional thoughts and time were by then engaged with the Third Symphony and the Spanish Lady, and that the main theme for the march was unpromising. Payne determined there was not enough in the sketches to complete the march, but fortunately 3 pages of score in Elgar's handwriting were discovered at the Royal School of Church Music's library marked P in C6. In 2006, the score and sketches were turned into a performing version. Payne noted in the program notes that nowhere else in the Pomp and Circumstance Marches does Elgar combine compound and duple meters in this way. Payne concluded the piece with a brief allusion to the first Pomp and Circumstance March. The world premiere was on August 2, 2006, with Andrew Davies conducting the BBC Symphony Orchestra at the Proms at Royal Albert Hall. The first recording was by the BBC National Orchestra of Wales under Richard Hickox. Instrumentation: the instrumentation is piccolo, 2 flutes, 2 oboes, cor anglais, 2 clarinets in bar unregistered trademark, bass clarinet in bar unregistered trademark, 2 bassoons, contrabassoon, 4 horns in F, 3 trumpets in bar unregistered trademark, 3 trombones, tuba, timpani, percussion, and strings. Arrangements: for piano solo, the first 4 marches were arranged by Adolf Schmid and March No. 5 by Victor Helly Hutchinson. For piano duo, March No. 1 was arranged by Adolf Schmid. For organ, March No. 1 was arranged by Edwin H. Lamar and March No. 4 was arranged by G. Sinclair. Marches 1-5 have been arranged in simplified and abbreviated form by William MacVicar. Concert transcriptions of Marches 2, 3, and 5, matching the Lamar and Sinclair arrangements, have been made by Michael Braw for use at Holy Trinity Sloane Street but have not yet been published. For military band, the first 4 marches were arranged by M. Retford and March No. 5 by T. Conway Brown. For brass band, March No. 1 was arranged by J. Ordhume. Recordings: the first recording with Elgar conducting was weeks before the outbreak of the Great War, in July 1914. This acoustic recording was made for the Gramophone Company and appeared under the HMV label, on disc D179. References, notes. Sources: Kennedy, Michael. Portrait of Elgar. Oxford University Press. ISBN 0-19-284017-7. Maine, Basil. Edward Elgar, His Life and Works, Volume 2, Works. London, G. Bell and Sons Limited. McVeigh, Diana M. Elgar the Music Maker. Woodbridge, Suffolk, Boyd L. Press. ISBN 978-1-84383-295-9. Moore, Gerald N. Edward Elgar, A Creative Life. Oxford, Oxford University Press. ISBN 0-19-315447-1. Wood, Henry, My Life of Music. External links: Elgar Marches on CD, Elgar Birthplace Museum, Elgar conducting the trio section of Pomp and Circumstance No. 1 in 1931 on YouTube, Pomp and Circumstance Marches, scores at the International Music Score Library Project, free sheet music of the marches on Cantorian.org.